What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a Final Fantasy VII Part 2 will be at E3 2021. So, about a week or so ago, we talked about Kingdom Hearts. Will a new Kingdom Hearts game be there? And there are conflicting answers, I would say, to that, right? Final Fantasy VII Part 2, I think, is the natural next thing to go to. So, obviously, the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII, that comes out right before E3. It comes out, I believe, June 8th, which is like 4 days before E3 starts. Obviously, the Yuffie DLC, right? And so the question would be, do they do something? You know, Square Enix obviously is going to E3. They're going to be a major publisher that's there. Do they show Part 2? Do they talk about it? I think it's definitely tough. I would definitely lean more towards no. Like, we'll go over, if it could happen, if it couldn't happen. I would lean towards no, maybe because of like the Sony factor there, right? If Sony has anything to do with Part 2, and by that I mean like if it's exclusive, and that's probably as simple as it gets, right? If it has any kind of exclusivity to PlayStation, do they not do it because Sony isn't going to E3? It could actually be a reason of if you wanted like Spider-Man's DLC maybe at E3, it would actually be kind of the same answer to that, right? So we'll break it down in this video really quickly before I get too far in, though. If you guys haven't already, and we're getting so close to 50K subscribers, make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. And if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. Link is in the description below. So like I said, I would lean more towards no. I would say, firstly, it's definitely possible. Now, I know, because you guys had told me, I assume this is going to be similar people that watch the Kingdom Hearts video. I know Nomura said, no Kingdom Hearts stuff this year. I don't know if he said that for Final Fantasy VII. What I do know is I think the last time he talked about the game was maybe a few weeks ago, if not a couple months ago, in which he said, obviously, like, things are going good, and that they have moved exclusively towards the next game. They talked about how, obviously, not porting it, but making, the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII has helped them understand the console, has helped them understand just everything better so that Part 2 will go more smooth. So that's pretty much, and we've learned that Nomura is going to be taking more of like a creative director approach where he's going to kind of be monitoring all of the Final Fantasy projects versus like individual ones, right? So we've heard stuff like that. I don't know if he's ever said, and you guys will have to just let me know in the comments, if he's ever said that there won't be any news this year. But just because they say that does not mean that that immediately happens, okay? Game developers, game publishers, gaming personalities, whatever have you, right? They lie literally all the time. It's literally what they do best. And they don't do it maliciously, but they do it to hide so that people can get, excited for things. So, honestly, even if he did say it, I maybe that ends up happening, but I don't just immediately believe him because he said it. I understand he's like all of our God because of Kingdom Hearts and because of all of the stuff that he's done just in general, but at the same time, he could easily be lying so that people can be surprised about something. It makes sense only for a couple, I guess under a couple stipulations. If the game is relatively close to releasing, then it does make sense to, I guess, show it. They are no strangers to announcing a game very, very early before the game releases. However, they have said numerous times that they regret, specifically Kingdom Hearts 3, doing that as early as they did. So you could say, okay, well, even if it's 2 years out, they could still show something. Do they have to, or should they, I guess is probably the question, right? Should they do it? Not necessarily, although you even look back to Final Fantasy VII when they announced that. That was announced years. I think, what was it, like at least 3 or 4 years before the game actually came out, when they first kind of said that they were working on that project. So they are no strangers to announcing things way too early. But again, it's just that. It could be way too early. It really, again, to me, it depends on when the game comes out. So obviously, it's only been a year. It feels like longer, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's because of the year we've just had, but it feels like longer since we've had Final Fantasy VII, but it's really only been 1 year. I would believe, I guess under a normal developer, and because they are not, those people that work there are on a different level, in kind of good and bad ways. But under a normal situation, I would say 2 years is normally on the low end, and it normally doesn't happen, right? Normally, I would say probably the average for game development is probably 3 to 4 years, okay? And sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but I would say it probably averages to 3 to 4 years. So 2 years seems very quick. I know there are people that think it's possible. I don't doubt it. I'm not saying like you're wrong. I think it definitely could happen, but I would say I believe it's probably going to be 3 years at least. And I really, I guess for the gamer in me, like I do want the game as soon as possible. If it takes 4 years, it takes 4 years. But also because of how they're doing it with like parts for Final Fantasy. I mean, like I never played the original. I've said that before in past videos. I don't want to wait like 10, 12 years to play all of it, just kind of separate. I guess I could just go back and play, the original game if I wanted to, but I don't really want to wait that long. But yet, that's not my choice. I mean, that's up to them to make the game. So I guess to me, the biggest thing that it all stands on is the game releasing next year or is it releasing the year after? Because if it's releasing the year after, I would imagine they'd stay quiet. Again, it's also 3, 4, 5 days, whenever they end up doing, whenever their specific show is at E3, it's literally right after the PS5 version of Final Fantasy comes out. And that's what's going to be interesting is, like, they're going to want to push that, obviously promote it so they make money and all that stuff. If you announce the next game, does that hurt what you have just done? Does that, like, if you do it 4 days after you release something, does that hurt what you just released? I would argue probably. And then again, my biggest thing in terms of like a negative, I guess even beyond the release date thing, is really the Sony thing, like I said in the beginning of the video. So I would 100% expect, if it doesn't happen, I would honestly be shocked if the Final Fantasy VII Part 2 was not PlayStation exclusive. So I think it will be exclusive for PS5. And literally, I do mean PS5, not PS4 and PS5, just PS5. I think that'll happen. And so the question is, Sony's not going to E3. Does anybody announce things if they're not there? What's interesting is like Microsoft is there. So if anybody has any deals with Microsoft, it's very possible that they don't do it. Like say Ubisoft has a deal with Microsoft for something, for some game. It's very possible that the game maybe isn't at Ubisoft show, but is at Microsoft show. That often happens. Sometimes it's only at Microsoft show. Sometimes it's both, but they'll do Microsoft show first. Like that'll be the first time you see it, depending on which day, and which order these publishers are going. So you have that as well. Sony's not going, so Square Enix can't say. I guess I don't know that. I guess I don't know that answer, right? I don't know if Square Enix could announce something like that if Sony isn't there. It feels weird. It would feel like they probably wouldn't if Sony's literally not participating. However, Sony, I would guarantee, is going to do a State of Play sometime in June. I've been saying I would expect it right before E3 or right after E3. That's just my personal opinion, that I think Sony will do something like this to make sure they're around the conversation as everybody else is. So maybe they don't do anything at E3. They don't announce. They maybe talk about, the PS5 version of Final Fantasy VII, but then, and the Yuffie DLC and all that stuff, but then maybe they can do it at Sony's State of Play. So there's definitely options there. I don't, I love these games. I love games in general. I don't like being negative when it comes to, do I think games will be announced or released here? I don't like ever saying no, but in reality, I think if we're going into Square Enix's show expecting Part 2, I feel like the odds are kind of higher we're going to get disappointed. You know what I mean? So that's just my personal opinion. I don't think we'll have to wait too much. I really do think the game would probably release within the next 2 years. I would say in 2 years. I would say 2023 is when I think the game releases. But, hey, you never know. So, yeah, and I guess that, again, depends. Because if it releases next year, maybe they don't show it at E3, but maybe they announce it very, very soon, like in the fall or something. But, again, if it releases in 2 years, we may have to wait a bit longer to start seeing it. But, really, I don't think it's going to be all that far out no matter what. So let me know, guys, in the comments below, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be at E3? When do you think it'll actually release? Do you think will do it at a Sony specific thing or just on their own? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Again, we're pushing 50K subscribers and we're getting so close, so make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. Link is in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.